every man's fantasy, maybe, to kind of live those kind of lives. But
For most fans, Sam Elliott represents certainty, a steady voice, a steady presence, a steady life. His marriage to Katharine Ross seemed to reflect that same stability, standing firm while so many others fell apart. But in 2011, that image was quietly disrupted by an event that raised questions no one expected and answers no one fully received. Sam Elliott didn't explain it. He didn't defend it. He simply endured it. And for years, the full story remained incomplete. What really happened inside one of Hollywood's most private families? And how did they survive something so severe without letting it define them? Growing up under hard expectations. Samuel Pack Elliott was born on August 9, 1944 in Sacramento, California. His father, Henry Nelson Elliott, worked as a predator control specialist for the U.S. Department of the Interior. His mother, Glynn Marney, wore two hats, working as both a physical training instructor and a school teacher. It was a household built on discipline, routine, and hard work. When Sam was around 13, the family relocated north to Portland, Oregon. That move would shape most of his teenage years. He grew up in the northeastern part of the city, attended David Douglas High School, and graduated in 1962. After high school, he headed to the University of Oregon in Eugene. The plan was to study English and psychology, but the classroom didn't hold him for long. After just 2 terms, he dropped out. He returned to Portland and enrolled at Clark College in nearby Vancouver, Washington, still searching for direction. By 1965, Sam was living back home with his mother, reeling from a major loss. His father had just died suddenly of a heart attack, at only 54 years old. In the middle of that grief, Sam felt a powerful sense of obligation to serve his country. The Vietnam War was raging, and he believed it was his duty to go. He visited recruiters from multiple branches of the military, collecting paperwork and seriously weighing his options. Years later, he would recall a moment that stayed with him forever. One morning, his mother sat with him at the kitchen table, coffee in hand, tears in her eyes, quietly begging him not to go. That plea, combined with guidance from a family friend who served as a National Guard officer, changed everything. Instead of heading overseas, Sam joined the California National Guard. Looking back, he openly admitted the decision likely saved his life. He was deeply grateful for that outcome, but he also carried guilt, knowing so many young men his age were not as lucky. Around this same period, something else clicked. After completing a 2-year program, Sam landed a role as Big Jewel in a stage production of Guys and Dolls. He didn't just perform well, he stood out. The local newspaper took notice and even suggested he seriously consider acting as a profession. For the first time, the idea felt real. He graduated from Clark College and made another attempt at returning to the University of Oregon. But once again, he dropped out. The emotional fallout from his father's death lingered longer than he expected, and it quietly reshaped his focus. To understand Sam Elliott, it helps to understand his father. Henry Elliott was a tough, no-frills man, the kind who believed in earning everything and trusting very little. He worked for Fish and Game, carried himself with military discipline, and was not easy to impress. Sam later admitted that his father often made his disappointment clear, especially when it came to his son's creative ambitions. In the late 1960s, Sam made the leap to Los Angeles to seriously pursue acting. His father never lived to see that chapter begin. Before passing, Henry had tried to steer him away from Hollywood, urging him to finish college and choose a safer path. His mother, on the other hand, believed completely in her son. She saw his talent early and gave him the encouragement his father never could. Henry Elliott was blunt about Sam's odds. He once laid it out plainly, telling his son that he had almost no chance of making it as an actor and that chasing such a dream was a waste of time. Years later, Sam didn't describe his father as cruel, just realistic. He understood that Henry was shaped by hard work, structure, and survival, and that mindset left no room for dreams handed to you for free. That same mindset, though, left a mark. Sam credits his father with giving him an unshakable work ethic, one that carried him through years of rejection and uncertainty. Even without belief, the lesson was clear. Show up, work hard, and don't expect anything to be given. Fans often point to Sam Elliott's rugged masculinity as one of his defining traits. That image didn't come from nowhere. Much of it was modeled directly after his father. As a boy, Sam spent time fishing with his dad and his circle of friends, a group he later described as tough and uncompromising. His father wasn't gentle, wasn't patient, and didn't tolerate weakness. When Henry died, collapsing in his wife's arms at their Portland home, Sam was just 18 years old. Even at that age, he knew his father viewed his acting dream as foolish. Sam never set out to prove him wrong, at least not consciously, but there was always a quiet desire to earn that man's respect. That chance never came. Henry Elliott never got to see his son become a star. He never saw the westerns, the iconic roles, or the career that would stretch across decades. Sam later shared that his father had little interest in theater or the arts and was rarely impressed, even when he attended Sam's early performances. Instead of breaking him, that indifference fueled him. It sharpened his resolve. It pushed him forward. And this wouldn't be the last time Sam Elliott defied expectations. Like other industry legends such as Carol Burnett, Angela Lansbury, and Tom Selleck, he was often praised for his looks. But Sam Elliott had no interest in being just another Hollywood heartthrob. He was building something deeper, grounded in grit, patience, and a voice shaped by the man who never believed he'd make it. The Hollywood start you've never heard. Long before he became a familiar mustachioed fixture on movie screens, Sam Elliott had already lived a few lives. One of them included serving in the National Guard, a chapter that quietly shaped his sense of discipline and responsibility. When that service ended, he packed up and headed straight for Los Angeles, chasing the dream he'd carried since childhood. Hollywood in the mid to late 1960s was a very different place. As Sam later explained in conversations with Mark Maron, it felt more like a small town than a massive industry. There were only a handful of major studios and just 3 television networks. Everyone seemed to know everyone, and breaking in was no easy task. In those early days, Elliott did what most hopeful actors did. He worked whatever jobs he could find around Southern California to pay the bills. At the same time, he enrolled in a film acting workshop run by Columbia Pictures, trying to get closer to the business from any angle possible. His actual break into the industry didn't come through auditions or agents. It came through pure coincidence. Back in Sacramento, his mother had once lived next door to a woman whose daughter was married to an assistant director. Sam had only met the couple once. Still, after moving to Los Angeles, he looked them up. That single decision changed everything. The assistant director immediately put him to work, not in front of a camera, but as a handyman. While doing construction work on a house one day, Elliott crossed paths with casting director Bob Thompson. Thompson took a strong personal interest in him, and while the dynamic was complicated, the two formed a genuine friendship. Thompson never cast Elliott himself, but he opened a crucial door by helping him secure a contract that led to his first film credit. That credit came in 1969's Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. Elliott's role was tiny, so small that most viewers never notice him at all. His name appeared in the credits mainly because he was under contract, and his on-screen presence amounted to little more than a blink and you miss it moment. Still, it counted. He was on a real movie set, watching how the business worked up close. For a man who had wanted to act since he was 9 years old, it was a huge milestone. Adding to the surreal nature of the moment, the film also starred Katharine Ross, who would later become his wife. Elliott often joked that his big break came from pouring cement, and it wasn't far from the truth. That first role gave him enough confidence to quit construction for good, but he never pretended it made him famous. He openly described himself at the time as little more than an extra, barely visible, and speaking just a single off-camera line. Even so, the experience mattered. He spent days watching Robert Redford work, soaking it all in, learning simply by being there. More than the mustache, more even than his screen presence, Sam Elliott would eventually become known for his deep, gravelly voice. But early on, not everyone saw that as an advantage. While still juggling construction work and acting classes, a friend introduced him to a Hollywood agent. The meeting was blunt. The agent told him to either go back to Portland or get serious about changing his voice. He was advised to take diction lessons and strip away what was perceived as a distracting accent. Ironically, Elliott's voice had been part of his life since the very beginning. He started singing in a church choir at just 4 years old. As he grew older, his voice naturally deepened. For a long time, he thought it sounded unusual, shaped by a southwestern dialect that closely mirrored his mother's way of speaking. Singing never fully left his heart either. And even later in life, he admitted he would love to take on a musical role someday. As a young man, Elliott had everything studios typically look for in a star. He had talent, presence, and striking good looks. In the 1970s, he was already stealing scenes on television shows like Hawaii Five-0, appearing alongside heavyweights such as Jessica Walter. With thick, wavy hair, rugged features, and a smoldering intensity, he seemed perfectly designed for leading man roles. Yet he was never interested in being famous just for looking good. Elliott actively resisted being boxed into roles that existed solely to make audiences swoon. He made it clear he didn't want the label of sex symbol attached to his name. What mattered to him was something simpler and more personal. He wanted to be known on his own terms. His on-screen journey officially began in 1969 with his first credited role as Dan Kenyon in the series Judd for the Defense. That same year, he appeared on the Western series Lancer. The producers liked what they saw, bringing him back for additional episodes in 1970 and 1971. By 1974, it looked like Elliott might finally be on the verge of a major breakthrough. He landed the starring role in a television pilot inspired by Evel Knievel, who at the time was one of the biggest pop culture figures in America. The show was designed as a spin-off from a feature film starring George Hamilton, with Elliott cast as the TV version of the Daredevil. The concept centered on a competitive storyline that pitched his character against a female stunt performer. It felt like the kind of opportunity that could change everything. Then it vanished. CBS passed on the pilot and chose not to move forward with the series. Footage from that unsold episode later surfaced online, and it's easy to see why the network hesitated. The exaggerated action, dramatic explosions, and over-the-top narration placed it firmly in the category of forgotten television experiments. Elliott himself wasn't thrilled when the pilot resurfaced years later, but his reaction was grounded in perspective. Like any actor who sticks around long enough, he understood that not every project ages well. Survival in Hollywood, he knew, often meant learning to outlast the missteps and keep moving forward. From TV guest roles to stardom. Through the early 1970s, Sam Elliott was grinding, plain and simple. He showed up wherever the work was, stacking guest roles on familiar TV shows like Policewoman and The Streets of San Francisco. None of it was glamorous, but it was consistent, and consistency mattered. All that effort finally paid off in 1976 when he landed the starring role in the feature film Lifeguard. This was a real leading man part, the kind that looked like it could finally push him into the Hollywood fast lane. And then, almost unbelievably, Elliott derailed it himself. The issue wasn't the movie. He actually respected the story. The problem was how the studio chose to sell it. When Elliott first saw the poster, he was stunned. There he was, nearly naked in a tiny swimsuit, flanked by 2 women, with marketing that framed the film as a shallow summer fantasy. That image clashed hard with the story he had signed on for. The character was a man standing at a crossroads, confronting aging, identity, and whether it was time to move on from the only life he knew. Instead of smiling through the press tour, Elliott did the opposite. He openly criticized the marketing during interviews. He didn't soften it or play along. That honesty came at a price. He later admitted that he got himself into serious trouble by being outspoken, opinionated, and not particularly strategic. The fallout was immediate and permanent. Paramount never worked with him again. The pressure didn't ease after that. Behind the scenes, the industry was wearing him down in other ways. In 1980, Elliott spoke openly about something many actors stayed silent about at the time. He said he was repeatedly propositioned during auditions by both men and women. He refused every time. He believed that those refusals likely slowed his career, but he also knew he had to live with himself at the end of the day. His conscience, he said, was clear, even if his career wasn't exploding. That experience stayed with him. Years later, it made his support for the Me Too movement feel deeply personal. He understood how power was abused in Hollywood, and he never tried to downplay it. Still, the story wasn't all struggle. The 1980s brought roles that quietly raised his profile. In 1985, he appeared alongside Cher in Mask, delivering a grounded human performance that stood out. Then came Roadhouse in 1989, where he played opposite Patrick Swayze in a film that would eventually grow into a full-blown cult classic. By the time the 1990s arrived, Elliott had already spent more than 20 years working in the industry. And yet, he still wasn't a household name. He was recognizable, familiar, dependable, but not quite a star. For a long time, it felt like that might be where things stopped. Then, everything shifted. First came Gettysburg, the ambitious Civil War epic that gave Elliott a strong, commanding role. Soon after, he stepped into Tombstone, appearing alongside Kurt Russell in a Western that instantly became iconic. Playing Virgil Earp felt natural, almost inevitable. After decades in Westerns, Elliott fit into that world effortlessly. The role didn't just suit him, it unlocked the next phase of his career. From there, the doors opened wider. He took on larger, more varied roles in films like When We Were Soldiers, Thank You for Smoking, and eventually, The Big Lebowski. Ironically, one of his most famous performances wasn't a Western at all. In The Big Lebowski, Elliott appeared as the Stranger, a laid-back, philosophical narrator who seemed to drift in and out of the story like a ghost of the Old West. His rugged look and unmistakable mustache made the character instantly memorable. Despite how closely the mustache became tied to his image, Elliott himself never treated it as sacred. He shaved it off more than once and never felt particularly attached to it. What made the role even more remarkable was that the Coen brothers had imagined him before he was ever cast. The script described the character as looking and sounding exactly like Sam Elliott. That wasn't coincidence. Joel and Ethan Coen were longtime fans and had pictured him in the role from the beginning. When he finally agreed to do it, they were thrilled. His most memorable moment in the film comes at the very end, in a bowling alley, delivering a closing monologue straight to the audience. On set, that scene turned into something of a mystery for Elliott. The Coens kept asking for take after take, even though he felt he had nailed it early on. Eventually, he asked them directly what they were looking for. Their answer was simple. They already had what they needed. They just liked watching him do it. That small role ended up having an outsized impact. Elliott later admitted that before The Big Lebowski, he felt boxed in, worried he would never be seen as anything other than a quiet cowboy type. When he first read the script, he expected a complete departure from that image. Instead, he found a character described as sounding and looking just like him. At first, that realization surprised him. Then it reframed everything. What once felt like a limitation suddenly felt like a strength. Embracing that identity didn't trap him, it freed him. And from that point on, it led directly to some of the most memorable and respected work of his career. By the time the 2000s rolled around, Sam Elliott had already been steadily climbing for decades. But this was the decade where everything truly clicked. These years didn't just add to his resume, they reshaped his legacy. By the middle of the decade, he was everywhere. He popped up in popular Netflix series like The Ranch and Grace and Frankie, settling into recurring roles that let him blend humor, warmth, and that unmistakable gravitas. Even animated films came calling. In The Good Dinosaur, his voice alone was enough to command the screen, proving once again that it had become one of his greatest tools. Then, in 2017, came The Hero. Elliott played an aging Western icon, confronting the reality that his glory days were behind him. It wasn't just a good fit, it felt deeply personal. The film's writer and director, Brett Haley, had written the role specifically for him after the two connected years earlier on another project. The result was a quiet, reflective film that felt like a tribute, not just to Elliott, but to an era of filmmaking that was slowly fading away. Elliott didn't slow down after that. Instead, he leaned into the unexpected. He starred in the strangely titled The Man Who Killed Hitler and then The Bigfoot, a low-budget film that sounded like a joke, but landed as something far more thoughtful. Critics praised it, pointing directly to Elliott's weary, grounded performance as the reason it worked. Even in the most unlikely projects, his presence carried weight. Then came 2018, a year that marked a high point in his career. A Star is Born arrived quietly, without massive expectations. Yes, it starred Lady Gaga and Bradley Cooper, and yes, it was Cooper's directorial debut. But few predicted it would become one of the year's defining films, dominate the box office, launch chart-topping music, or earn 8 Academy Award nominations, including Best Picture. Sam Elliott was right in the middle of it all. He played Bobby Maine, the older brother of Cooper's troubled musician, Jackson Maine. The role was restrained but devastating, and it struck a nerve with audiences. Elliott himself later admitted that he felt confident about the project almost immediately after meeting Cooper. Even without seeing the script, it was clear that Cooper knew exactly what he wanted and had the intelligence and vision to pull it off. That first meeting, though, wasn't without its odd moments. Elliott visited Cooper at his home, shared a meal, and spent hours talking about family, mothers, life, and filmmaking. Everything felt natural and relaxed. Then Cooper played him a recording. It was a tape of Cooper working with a voice coach to develop his character's voice. Within seconds, Elliott recognized what he was hearing. Cooper wasn't just inspired by him. He was actively studying and mimicking his voice. It was unsettling, almost surreal, hearing someone repeat phrases and tones that felt unmistakably his own. Strange as it was, that vocal imitation ended up becoming a powerful storytelling device. It fed directly into one of the film's most emotionally charged scenes between the two characters. And in that moment, Elliott delivered one of the most praised performances of his career. Critics and audiences responded immediately. The role earned him a National Board of Review Award for Best Supporting Actor, a Screen Actors Guild nomination, and for the first time in his long career, an Academy Award nomination. After decades of steady work, missed breaks, and quiet perseverance, Sam Elliott finally reached a moment that felt like recognition, not just for a single role, but for a lifetime of commitment to the craft. Hollywood's secret long-game romance. Long before Sam Elliott and Katharine Ross became one of Hollywood's most admired couples, their paths crossed in a way that almost feels ironic. Both appeared in the 1969 classic Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, yet they never actually met. Ross was a leading player in the film, moving in and out of major scenes, while Elliott was still finding his footing, barely visible among the background players. He later recalled that all he could do was watch her come and go. At that point, he was just another face on the lot, and neither of them had any idea their lives would one day be intertwined. Nearly 10 years later, fate gave them a second chance. This time, it stuck. They finally connected while working on the 1978 horror film, The Legacy. By then, Elliott had carved out a solid place for himself in the industry, while Ross was newly divorced and entering a different phase of her life. Whatever the spark was, it was immediate and undeniable. Ross later explained that while the mustache and that deep, unmistakable voice were certainly part of the attraction, there was much more beneath the surface. They married in 1984. It was Elliott's first marriage and Ross's fifth, but it turned out to be the one that lasted. Decades later, they are still together, a rarity in Hollywood. Over the years, they've appeared in 9 projects together, turning their personal partnership into a creative one as well. That partnership started strong. The legacy didn't just unite them romantically, it opened the door to years of collaboration. Elliott often spoke about how meaningful it was to work alongside his wife, describing the experience as both grounding and inspiring. Their creative bond even led them to write a made-for-television movie together in 1991, which they also starred in. For Elliott, their time working on Conaher stood out as one of the true highlights of his career. Their collaboration wasn't limited to film and television. In 2014, the couple took to the stage together in a production of Love Letters, a well-known play that had first gained major attention on Broadway in the late 1980s. They agreed to perform it at the Hanover Theatre in Massachusetts after a close friend battling cancer personally asked them to do it. It was a deeply meaningful decision, one rooted in friendship, love, and shared artistry. A few years later, they reunited on screen once again in The Hero, released in 2017. This time, interestingly enough, they played a divorced couple. Elliott later reflected on how much he enjoyed sharing that creative space with Ross, explaining that making movies together was something they genuinely loved. For them, collaboration wasn't a strain on their relationship, it was part of what kept it strong. At the heart of their marriage is the belief that shared experiences matter. Elliott has said that working together has only deepened their connection, and he enjoys coming home to someone who truly understands his world. While they continue to appear together on screen from time to time, they've also made a conscious effort to slow down and simply enjoy life together, away from the cameras. They've also been each other's biggest supporters. There's a now famous story about Elliott nearly turning down his breakout role in Mask because the couple was on their honeymoon in Hawaii. Ross didn't hesitate. She contacted his agent herself and made it clear they would be back in time. The decision paid off, earning Elliott critical praise alongside the film's lead actors. Elliott has never pretended that marriage is effortless. He's been open about the work it takes, but just as clear that he's willing to do it. Whatever the exact formula may be, Sam Elliott and Katharine Ross have built something rare in Hollywood. A lasting partnership rooted in respect, creativity, and genuine love. Sam Elliott finally confesses the truth about his wife. For years, the Elliott family has been viewed as a rare example of stability in Hollywood. Sam Elliott and Katharine Ross built a long-lasting marriage, stayed largely out of scandal, and raised one daughter together. From the outside, it looked like a picture of balance and quiet strength. That image became more complicated in 2011, when reports surfaced that Ross had filed a restraining order against their daughter, Cleo. Cleo Rose Elliott was born on September 17, 1984, in Malibu, California. She is the only child of Sam Elliott and Katharine Ross. Growing up in a household shaped by creativity, it was almost inevitable that she would be drawn to the arts. While Sam's own mother once pushed him toward singing as a child, Cleo developed an even deeper pull toward music. She started young, playing flute and guitar while attending Malibu High School and Colin McEwen High School. After graduating, she committed herself fully to music, training under respected singer-songwriter Charity Chapman. She also became a member of ASCAP, the American Society of Composers, Authors, and Publishers. Her education didn't stop there. From 2002 to 2006, Cleo studied at the Joanne Baron and D.W. Brown Acting Studio, focusing heavily on Italian opera. It was an intense and demanding discipline, one that reflected how seriously she took her craft. Her music career didn't explode overnight, so she explored other creative outlets along the way. For a time, Cleo worked as a model, appearing in publications like Malibu Times magazine, including a feature alongside her parents. She also showed up on a hairstyling program called Sexy Hair, giving her early exposure in front of cameras. The real turning point in her music journey came through mentorship. Charity Chapman introduced Cleo to producer Bobby Harvey, a fellow ASCAP member. Harvey played a key role in helping her shape her sound, guiding her through the process of refining her songs and preparing them for release. In 2008, Cleo released her debut album, No More Lies. She wrote nearly every track herself, showcasing a strong personal voice from the start. The album leaned toward pop rock, though Cleo has said her true taste runs heavier. Her influences reflect that range, drawing inspiration from artists like Guns N' Roses, Jimi Hendrix, Fiona Apple, Sheryl Crow, and Pink Floyd. Her parents supported her musical path wholeheartedly. In fact, they were relieved she chose music over acting. There was a certain symmetry in that, especially considering Sam Elliott's own father had once discouraged him from pursuing an acting career. Then came 2011, and with it, a deeply troubling chapter. According to court documents, Ross alleged that Cleo had displayed emotionally and verbally abusive behavior from a young age, which escalated over time. That year, the situation reportedly reached a breaking point. Ross claimed her daughter threatened her life and chased her through the house while holding scissors. When Ross attempted to call emergency services, she alleged that Cleo cut the phone cord. The confrontation ended with Ross being stabbed multiple times in the arm. Injuries, she later said, left lasting marks. In the aftermath, Ross filed for a restraining order to protect herself. The order went into effect on March 8, 2011. A hearing was scheduled later that month, but when no one appeared in court, the order was suspended. Still, strict conditions were put in place. Cleo was ordered to stay a significant distance away from her mother and her property and was prohibited from contacting her. When Cleo needed to retrieve personal belongings from the family home, police officers were required to escort her. Today, that restraining order is no longer active. The family is once again able to be together, though what caused such a severe rupture remains largely unknown. From the outside, it had appeared to be a loving, functional household, which made the situation all the more shocking. Recovering from something that serious is no small thing, but resilience has always been part of Sam Elliott's story. Over time, the family has clearly worked toward healing. They now appear publicly together and have even collaborated professionally again. Sam and Katharine currently split their time between homes in Oregon and California, a lifestyle that allows them to step away from Hollywood's spotlight and focus on what matters most. While their careers have slowed compared to earlier decades, both continue to work steadily. Though fiercely private, their public appearances suggest a reunited family. They attended the 2017 Sundance Film Festival together to promote The Hero, a film written specifically for Sam, with Katharine playing his ex-wife. Cleo has spoken openly about her pride in both parents and their accomplishments. The family also appeared together at the 2018 premiere of A Star Is Born, one of the biggest films of that year. Sam later shared that Cleo played a role in introducing him to the music of Lady Gaga, which deepened his appreciation for the project. Sam Elliott has said that his family completes him, describing his wife and daughter as his entire world. That sentiment speaks volumes. While the restraining order remains a painful chapter in their history, all signs point to a family that has done the hard work to move forward and heal together.